G'day friends and fans, welcome to Day Talk Stuff Ukraine War update for the 26th of May 2026. Russian forces have advanced and have surrounded and taken most of the town of Dobropasovo. Dobropasovo, which there is some fighting in and around the town still. Ukrainian forces call this a temporary setback. Temporary setback. Fighting continues in 230 points of conflict, with over 50 points of impact, 54 points of impact registered on Ukraine today, but from far less drones than previous. Again, according to Russia, there's been a systemic failure of air defenses due to a lack of air defense missiles. The US officials deny Kiev's claim that US have withheld shipments. Shipments have arrived on time. European officials have not commented, and some officials, maybe European, on Telegram have said that the Russians are lying. But Ukraine has not actually published the claim that air defences have failed. They claim to have shot down the majority, even though, Now, the majority of drones were targeted today at Kiev. A fire was reported at a factory north of Kiev, but it's not marked on the map. But somewhere up here, it's an industrial complex that feeds parts and materials to a distributed network of drone assemblers. It's believed they come down through this area here, which was attacked recently, a major Ukrainian military town apparently. And from there, there's one threat to three major distribution points, right? So they come down to here, through here, so 1, 2, 3. So Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, and Mykolaiv Oblast, 1, 2, 3. All right. Russia has said and pointed out that it has only targeted military targets, that others are collateral damage, a result of Ukrainian actions. Well, yeah, shoot down drones, they fall where they land, they don't. But we can't take either side's word at face value. And unless there are more publications and more transparency, we just have to take it with a grain of salt that the majority of the time, they're somewhat accurate, but not accurate. Because they can't lie too much, because people can and do point out when they do lie. But at the moment, they're in that grey area where it could be miscounting of drones or withholding information. Ukraine does that a lot, but so does Russia. So we have roughly, according to Russia, 500 points of drone attacks daily. Ukraine has stepped up its drone attacks, in which Russia has answered with more missiles. Ukraine doesn't report its attacks on Russia. Most of them, anyway. They report a few, but again, they've attacked Donetsk, and Mariupol attacked civilian targets. They claim to have shut down Russian railway, which is not true. One attack can't shut down an entire railroad network, please. So there are exaggerations on both sides. All right, so we have fighting in the buffer zone as usual, which has expanded a tiny bit, but nothing really of consequence. But it's halfway to Srebrenica. Yeah, there was reports of Lyman being captured. No, that's a tiny town here, which actually was captured over a month ago, but the Russians have advanced past it. But Vicha, and a few others have not fallen. And yeah, the Lyman is a common, there's like Billy and Novovodska. There's a few very similar town names and towns, and some exactly the same. But major ones like Kupiansk, there's no mistaking. Though the thrust into Kupiansk again was, not far, and they have not gained a foothold. They have in other areas attacked as well. Again, Ukrainians have held their lines. Changes to attacks along the frontier, but not many. But the Russians continue and persist. Same in the Lyman area. In the outskirts of Lyman, however, there is still going on. But they've made small progress here at outside of Dobropasovo, and they've taken some of the forested area and overrun a few Ukrainian positions here, but they have not broken through all their lines completely, which are scattered, and there is indiscriminate fighting throughout the area, but it's rarely reported. But Russian special forces have entered Kavdaluka, conducted a series of raids on Ukrainian positions, but the Russian forces have not broken through their lines. We have reports of fighting here, but the Ukrainian map shows different. We have reporting of the Russians here, but not according to this map. Now, there are different maps. Well, the Russians have taken a little bit more territory here, but most of Provilia still, only a small amount, Although, see, the town is sort of like higgly-piggly. It's not and some of the town, but not all the town, and it sort of merges into this, so there's not much else. Street fighting, small advances, small gains, only tiny gains, fighting, small gains, Ukrainians holding position, small gains, most of Nova has fallen. Ukraine is still holding on. Russia has only made small gains, and Ukraine hasn't lost much here as well. But here is where the question mark is. How much has Russia advanced and Ukraine not reported? Or how much a forward thrust of the Russian army has allegedly broken the lines here? How much of this is under Russian control and under Ukrainian control? Now, sometimes towns have remained fallen, and sometimes they have not. But yeah, if this map continues to lag behind, but the Russian map also lags behind in that that town is in the grey area in the conflict zone. So that town, yeah, is close to the Ukrainian lines, and this is more a representation of the Russian lines. So this is the grey area. The grey area all through here, right? It's sort of like no man's land, where man hunts man to kill other men. Now, remember, this channel is sponsored by you, the viewing audience. Get a coffee cup today. Empire Valves, that's one word, Empire Valves, myshopify.com. Links in the description below. Your one-stop shop in training treasures for my support, my writing, and other efforts. All right, so remember how we reported on the Russian mortar. Now, this is a huge, huge beast. This is the bigger one, right? I said they brought back their siege cannon. Now, previously there was a smaller version of this. They've brought back a previous and upgraded. The 2S2 is now 2S4. Tupolan. In Russian, it's the 2S4. Means tulip. It's based on basically the stand on which the mortar, the ground stand for the mortar, as you can see here, deployed. That's it's in driving motion at the rear. It is mounted on the rear. That's the driver's cabin in there. This has recently received the 2S2 had received upgrades. This is not a new version. This is a 1970s. Sorry, I said 2S2, I meant 2S3. The 2S3 was brought back. The 2S2, I think, is been upgraded. Yeah, the 2S3 has a slow rate of fire, but now they've brought back yeah. So there it is. As you can see, it's a bigger gun, and it's quite a beast. Can't show it in action. Yeah, that's a whole building. If Russia was to deploy lots of these, they'd just sit there and systematically destroy town after town. If Russia wasn't wasn't so economic depleted, it is weak. Don't get me wrong. They'd probably make it to Germany, but that's about it. American assessment is Europe is in no danger. Even the Germans, some of the German opposition parties have questioned where Schultz is getting his information from. Now, this is from training, and the majority are still in training. Only a handful have been deployed to Ukraine right now, along with siege cannons. 240mm siege cannons. There are, yeah, the Tulip has two. You have the mortar variation and a siege cannon variation. Siege cannon variations, yeah, 242. Siege cannon, rocket assist, let's see, 19.6 kilometers. Yeah, in a matter of seconds, boom. It's not a fast. It's basically designed. It is a siege weapon. Basically, rock up and just systematically destroy a location. You don't bring these weapons out if you intend to sign a peace deal, I know. You bring these weapons out when you want to systematically clear your borders of anything, any man-made structure, and just systematically eliminate anything and everything. It is a slightly imprecise weapon, but it's not a desperate move. It's a systematic redeployment of assets, in that more expensive rocket artillery is being replaced by cheaper siege artillery. But nevertheless, Russia continues with its drones as it goes through its still months into the Iran war, and Russia still has Shia drones up its sleeve. It's believed that most of the drone production has now been moved to other areas of Russia. Most of the Iranians involved in drone production are in Azerbaijan, but that's not the primary source of drone production. The drone production in Russia is spread out over at least 6 major locations in Russia. And Russian air defenses, of course, are increased with more to come, apparently. But, like I said, they've increased their mobile anti-drone air defenses. And they also fired 2 air-launched, 2 medium-ranged, to scan it. They're medium-range, so ground launch. They claim 111, but it was far less than that. Even, Kiev Independent reported over 54 impacts, so you can't shoot down 111, proud 122 and have 54 impacts, right? Someone's mass ain't mathin'. Alright, so Russian Orsk was deployed, and apparently they struck a Soviet-era legacy site, which was used to house assembly shops and storage facilities for Ukrainian attack and reconnaissance drones, as well as Flamingo missiles. Apparently, this specific strike was ground penetration, which is what. So maybe yesterday I was wrong, but about the explosions missing. But yeah, I still think the explosions were missing from the video. They were cut. Either the audio was cut, or flashes in the distance were cut. But the rhetoric is Western air defenses cannot stop, including the Patriots, did not stop the... we don't know if it's just because Russia had the advantage that day, or because the speed of it does make it impossible to intercept. We don't know, because we do know Patriots is not 100%, so we cannot take it we must take with a grain of salt that if Russia's developing air defenses, that means they are expecting American hypersonics, and and America has withheld technology on purpose. So is Russia, to stop the escalation. Zelensky's been pushing for Tomahawks, as we've seen. The Typhoon and similar missiles like the Scalp, and although Germany denies it, so we'll take their word on it, but the British variant of the German Taurus have been used. I forget the name of the British variant, sorry, but they all been used against Russia to limited success, but still more get through than fail. But the cost and the effectiveness have not been worth the money. You can achieve more with artillery than some of these very, very expensive air-launched cruise missiles. Particularly when a lot of them did not explode on impact. Now, that apparently was a fault in the Scalp, which has been rectified, but still. Ukraine has shifted a lot of its drone production. A big mistake. They're going to lose it. When this war's over, it's all going to be cut. Huge cuts will come after this war. Germany's already pushing for cuts, saying that Russia's not a threat, that Ukraine should accept a peace deal. Now, the problem is Zelensky's doubled down. They dug up a Nazi collaborator entombed in Kiev, and gave him state honours and entered him in the Book of Ukraine as a hero. Israel is furious. You just basically said that Ukraine is a nasty state and that the people of Ukraine are going to ignore the historical truths that both the nasties and the communists oppressed Ukraine. Ukraine oppressed Ukraine. Russia oppressed Ukraine. Germany oppressed Ukraine. But the people of today are not responsible for that atrocity. So why are you giving state honours to the people who committed war crimes? Because Ukraine is turning into a nasty state. You've been warned several times. Why? Because Zelensky wants a hero pantheon, a cult of personality like that in World War II. You're telling me that there were no Jewish collaborators in World War II? I'm sorry to burst your bubble. There were over 500,000 Jewish collaborators with the nasties. And they were proud of themselves, even unrepentant after their time in prison. There were, collaborators killed more than 33,000 in the attack on Babi Yar. But when Ukraine started to crumble, they were abandoned by the Ukrainian SS, were abandoned by the Third Reich. That is true. And yes, after they were turned in 1944 when Ukraine fell to the Russians, and they avoided trial at Nuremberg because they had settled. The Russians swapped intelligence on the Nazi network in return for time served. So they were exiled. That didn't really last long either. But some of them, they were scattered. And some of them did die between 64 and 80s. But there are a few still left alive who were honoured in Canada recently. So, Canada's got some questions to answer too. About the Freelands. But Ukrainian drone attacks, Russians haven't said how many they shot down, but they said they responded today to Ukrainian drone attacks with a direct strike on a Ukrainian drone operation in Lugansk. So Kiev, in response, they said this was responsible for the drones that attacked Staroblosk. And the Russian Foreign Ministry put out a statement read in the UN about Ukrainian war crimes, breaking the Geneva Conventions of 1949 and their additional protocols since, such as the Convention for Rights of Children in 1989 and a number of other significant international instruments, which NATO specialists have been now warned that if they are found to be on site, Russia will not hold back. Basically, if they're going to attack a site and NATO or any if any NATO are in the combat zone, or which includes now, the Ukrainian capital, any military and administrative infrastructure that is property of the Zelensky regime, is now considered any providing of intelligence and target designations, and decision-making centers and command points are all in Ukraine, not outside, in Ukraine. Be clear. And the armed forces of Russian Federation are not going to hold back. They're going to systematically strike all enterprises of the Ukrainian, they say military-industrial complex in Kiev, but Pacific sites across Ukraine. But if the NATO personnel do not leave, they've been now put on notice. There will be no more notices, I do not think. I think when they say put on notice, I think that's it. That's like, hey, we're not going to keep reminding you, we're putting you on notice. Though sometimes in Russian, that means that's our our final warning doesn't actually translate well, but I don't think it actually, if they said final warning, I would say with definite that the English translation is correct. But I don't think it's the final warning. I think Russia will still continue to warn or attack sites at night or early morning before they are occupied, basically because the Ukrainians there at night are the targets thereafter, the ones conducting the secret operations on behalf of Ukraine, the ones they don't know about, where they engage in stealing Russian tanks and technologies. Yeah, it's conducting sabotage across Russia to try and destroy its economy, because Ukraine is engaged in a huge racketeering shakedown in which they're trying to force Russia to subsidize the Ukrainian state and give Ukraine everything it wants, including $1 trillion. Putin's head on a platter and kiss Ukraine's butt. Zelensky, of course, would be hero of the people, and Kiev's square would be Zelensky Square, and there'd be a huge Zelensky memorial. Yeah, cult of personality, much worship of people, man, false idols. Yeah, what's that about before the fall? What's that word? Oh, that's right, pride. So, Dobropasovo is a huge escalation. Basically, a huge advance of the Russian battle group to basically extend, and yeah, they are trying to cut off their road. As I said the other day, if I was Russia, what would I do? Well, you know, the alternative supply routes to the front. And if you want to break them, you flank them. So they break a line and to flank them. And you take out that line. You cut all of that. Everything below it falls, including Zaporozhye. It's not difficult to work out. That's why they'll try to push through here. Push up through here. Push through here. The same thing. Push through here. Take this. Push through here. Take this. Push up to here. Push up through here. Flank all this. Carve it all up. What's not to understand? That your rear lines are more important than your front lines right now. That's what Russia does. They wear you out, setting you at the front, boxing away, rope-a-dope, and then from behind, a bloody haymaker. And yeah, that's boxing. It's illegal, strike from behind, but it ain't boxing, and there ain't no Marquis of Queensberry's rules here, bro. So this is the problem that now Ukraine faces, is they are in an untenable situation. If Russia, say, deploys or can deploy a couple of hundred of these, or actually I think only 110, but yeah, 110, that's quite a deployment. And if they were to systematically destroy, and if I was doing it, I would just basically go systematically destroy, just go down the line, hammering away, just not advancing, just hammer away. You erode the Ukrainian lines, just hammer away. It's not going to be in a straight line, it's going to be here, ziggly piggly. The Ukrainians just watching the convoy, and when that convoy stops, they know they've only got a few minutes. There is 25 minutes for setup and an hour of artillery shelling, about 4 to 5 each. That's 400 to 500 artillery shells. High explosive. That's 50, 60 buildings a day. Twice a day they could probably do it if they were well equipped and well supplied and well set up for it. But I think they would go every few days. yeah, in a couple of months, the Ukrainian lines will be eroded. You don't have to change the rest of the lines. What is Ukraine going to do about that? They would have to try and bring its air power onto these convoys of artillery, and that would put them at risk because Russia will be putting their mobile air defences and helicopters to protecting these convoys. But that's what I would do. Now, I don't know what Putin's going to do. But I told you they were going to attack along here, and now they have. Right? They are going to cut off the bottoms. It's called cascading. That's right. You flank the enemy, take a key strategic point. And the Allies did this in World War II, where they broke through the German lines and went all the way to Bastogne, and to create a cascade effect of the Germans having to retreat back, or retreat. Actually, they didn't retreat all the way back like that. They retreated like that, but they were still leaving the path to Paris, and basically allowing the Americans to bulge out. And eventually the Germans thought they'll do the same here at the Battle of the Bulge, try and capture the fuel depot, in which they came within 20, some say 5, some say 25 miles. They'd actually missed Patton's, some of Patton's logistic points. They were well hidden in under camo nets, and they actually drove past a couple of... Had they found them, war would have gone differently. Again, if titanium bolts were properly used in the Tiger tank's gearbox, had the Tiger not focused on frontal armor only. There's a lot of what ifs, but some of them were too little too late. German logistics were just, and production was just too slow, and even the warnings. There were mistakes made, 5 major mistakes made, and Ukraine's now seemingly falling into a different pattern of mistakes. They're not repeating these same mistakes in the past, where they're taking too long to produce drones. They're taking too long. They can't produce any drones or ammunition on their own. Even their logistics, they can't produce on their own. They can't produce their own trucks. They can't produce their own drones. They cannot produce their own fuel. They've already technically lost the war. If it isn't for Europe basically holding them up, like Zelensky's a punch-drunk fighter. He's just gone. He's not there. He's just a meat puppet at this point, being passed around between Canada, UK, and Germany and France. They all take in turns, and basically they don't know what to do. But if they, losing Israel, and will start a cascade effect of others starting to go. Serbia, Slovakia, small nations for now. But as more nations go, Latvia opposition making a lot of noise because of the Ukrainian drones that were fired over Belarusia to spy on the nuclear program. Kiev gathering intelligence to sell to NATO, which, drones are cheaper than US satellites, but safer, and they don't fall on your neighbours usually, and they don't cost you lots of goodwill usually. And again, warnings sounded by other countries. Even now, Germany think the support for Ukraine's gone too far. That Ukraine is now demanding permanent welfare status, and that's not on. Really have people not wanting to support Israel indefinitely either. But there are countries around the world, and Israel's not the only one, that without financial support will collapse. Ukraine's not the only one that will collapse. There are, conflict states such as the Congo and Mali that have collapsed. Cuba, technically a conflict state. North Korea is wanting to get out of that status of conflict state and get back to... because traditionally Korea is not one country. It never has been for most of its history. In fact, the original unification of Korea was through conquest, north and south, south and north, 3 states fighting each other and conquered Japan. So yeah, it's not a good history to have, and the only way to get out of that cycle is to have north and south mutually exclusive, like recognize each other and not want to conquer each other. It has to be mutual. You can't have it one way. Same with Russia and Ukraine. You can't have Russia browbeaten into peace if Ukraine won't accept it. And it's the same with the conflict with Georgia. Russia's saying, hey, we don't want to conquer you. Just don't put weapons on our border. And Georgia says, oh, yeah, but you're a big threat to us. And it's like, no, we're not. Oh, but they point to historicals. So using history is not always a good option, because all it does is reopen old wounds. If you keep relying on history as a reason for putting weapons on someone's border, you are just as guilty of aggression as those who cross the border to create problems in the first place. Now, man's inhumanity. Man is not going to go away just because we end the Ukraine war, but for Christ's sake, Zelensky should not be the hero of Ukraine, and Ukraine should not be a heroic state and put on a pedestal. You are opening a can of worms that is going to create problems across Europe, and I fear they're doing it all on purpose so European liberal establishment can point to a nasty and say, oh, look, the far right is on the rise. And they're funding it. This is Southern Poverty Law Centre on steroids. You're worried about the Southern Poverty Centre funding the KKK? Well, you now have the European liberal establishment funding the descendants of the Waffen-SS in Ukraine to take over Ukraine after Zelensky. Oh, headed by Zelensky, sorry. What a wonderful outcome. Just undid the last 70-odd years of peace and prosperity. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. And support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.